People say you need to stop translating from your native language and start thinking in Korean when you want to speak better Korean. But what if you don't know what that means, how it should be done, and why you need to do that? Then you're watching the right video. Before we start, a little bit about me. My name is Yeji Kim, and I am teaching Korean using the English language here on Talk to Me in Korean. I was born and raised in Korea, where I've barely had any opportunity to speak English. But I've learned to speak it at a level where I can teach Korean using English as a profession. So in this video, I'm going to share how I learned to think in English when I was learning it and how it has helped me. And I believe every language learner can take advantage of the same approach. Let's first talk about why we translate sentences from our native language when speaking in a foreign language in the first place. It's easy to understand if you compare how we learn a foreign language and how babies learn their mother tongue. You know, babies learn a language by listening to a ton of words and sentences, right? On the contrary, we learn a foreign language through our mother tongue and by memorizing tons of words while matching the meanings in our own language. So it's kind of natural for us to go through the translation process. Then how can we stop translating and start thinking in the language we are learning? You just simply need to do this one thing. Think and talk to yourself in Korean consciously. Actually, this is the key point of this whole video. For beginners who might think you're not ready for this, please don't be afraid, because you are ready for this. From now on, I'll tell you what I mean by think in Korean consciously, how to do it depending on your level, and how to make it your habit. For beginners, start by saying objects you see in Korean. Whether the objects are in your room, in your office, or on your way to work, it doesn't matter. For example, here we have some pens, pencils, and a desk. Try to say those words in Korean like pen, 연필, 그리고 책상. Like I just did, it's always better to say everything out loud, but if it's not possible at the time, just think in your head. pen, 연필, 그리고 책상. The next step is to use adjectives, adverbs, and verbs with the nouns. For example, 연필을 들다, 연필을 쥐다, or even 갈색 연필로 썼어요. If you're not familiar with how to make sentences in various tenses, start with the present tense. And there must be some words you don't know yet, right? Let's say you didn't know the word for desk. Then make sure to write them down, maybe in a notebook or on your phone. Just like this. I'm not sure if you can see this, but I just wrote desk. Then look them up in the dictionary later. It's also a good idea to designate a time, like when you are commuting to work, and make it a word lookup time. And there will always be some words that never stick to your head. To give you a little tip, write down those words on sticky notes and put them on a wall where you can see them frequently. Also, put sticky notes of words that go hand in hand next to each other so that you can practice saying them together. And when you do this, there is one thing you need to be careful about. You never want to write down every single word you don't know. You know, language learning is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you try to write down like 10 words or 20 words every day, chances are your notepad will be nothing more than a long, unconquerable list of words you don't know. So I recommend you set a maximum number for words to look up later, like 5 words a day or even 3. For intermediate learners, make sentences about things around you or situations you are in. For example, 처음 보는 연필이다. 이걸로 한번 써볼까? In this stage, you might encounter a bunch of things you want to express, but don't know how to say. Realistically speaking, it's impossible to stop in all of those moments to open the dictionary app. So here is how to stop those moments from ruining your practice. Say the words you don't know yet in your mother tongue, and then go ahead to complete the sentences. For example, you don't know the word for highlighter in Korean. Then just say, 이 highlighter 한번 써볼까? And make a quick note of highlighter and look it up later. Make sure to study the word so that you can say 형광펜 next time you see it. For advanced learners, practice expressing complicated situations and thoughts in Korean. But sometimes, it's hard to find a complicated topic to talk about. So here is what I do when there is nothing complex to talk about. I pick a YouTube video, watch it, and try to summarize the video in the language that I'm learning. Or I think of a funny situation that happened a few days ago and imagine explaining it to my friends in English. And there might be some moments when you can't think of the best word or phrase. Then try to express it with words you already know, even if they are not the perfect words you're looking for. For example, you wanted to say, 오늘 출근하는 길에 형광펜 사려고 했는데 잊어버렸다. And let's say you didn't know the word 잊어버리다. Then instead of going blank, say 생각이 안 나다 or 기억을 못하다 and search for it later. Once again, ensure to use new words until you can confidently say them in sentences. So far, we've talked about what it means to think in Korean and how to do it depending on your level. Now let's talk about how to make it your habit. Designate a place or time and promise yourself that you're going to think and talk to yourself only in Korean in that place or during the period of time. I'm going to give you 3 specific methods that I've used. Method 1. Designate a time period. For example, 30 minutes after getting home or while you're doing the dishes. In my case, I talk to myself in English while I'm getting ready in the morning. It has become a part of my morning routine now. I think it's also a good idea to set an alarm for it until it becomes a part of your daily routine. Method 2. Designate a place. Pick a place and promise yourself that you're going to think only in Korean in that place. For instance, I'm going to think only in Korean every time I'm in a cafe. Okay? As for me, I told myself to think in English when I'm in the restroom at work. Though it might sound funny, it works. Method 3. Describe one place and move to another. Let's take your room as an example. Describe things and actions you do in the room a little bit each time, but every day. When you get used to saying things and actions in your room, expand it into the kitchen, the bathroom, and to the laundry room. If you're unfamiliar with expressions commonly used in those places, we have a book called My Daily Routine in Korean. This book is a picture dictionary where you can learn around 400 expressions related to everyday activities. So, study with this book first and use the expressions when you practice describing your actions. Lastly, let's talk about what is going to happen when you start to think in Korean. It will be uncomfortable, at first. That's because you are doing the natural automatic thinking process that you do in your mother tongue, but in a foreign language. But there are so many benefits you can enjoy from this practice. Let me go through some of them. First, you can improve your speaking skills. That's because you can shorten the time you need to say sentences in Korean, as you can drop the translation part. And also because you can get familiar with making sentences in Korean. And second, you can make opportunities to speak in Korean without someone to talk to in Korean. Third, you can expand your vocabulary as you're going to come across a bunch of expressions to look up. And you know what? Next time you hear native Korean speakers saying expressions you are looking for, those expressions will stick to your head right away. But please remember, this practice will come into effect only when you keep studying grammar and vocabulary together along the way. So, this is it for today's lesson. As I just mentioned, it's essential to keep studying Korean for this Think in Korean practice to pay off. If you are interested in improving your Korean with a balanced curriculum and systematic online courses and books, please visit us at talktomeinkorean.com. Also, if you have your own tips for improving speaking skills, please share them with your fellow learners down below in the comment section. Then I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. 안녕!